Welcome to Live Interactive English. Hello everyone, I'm Karen.
And I am Sydney. And today we are going to be continuing along with our article and the story of the Prince and the Pauper. So today is day 2 of that article and that conversation. So we kind of learned a lot from yesterday about, Tom and Edward and how they were born under very different circumstances. And I think at the end, they were kind of talking about what it would be like for them to kind of switch shoes or switch places and live each other's lives.
Well, that's a very interesting question. But let me ask you, Sydney, is there anyone, that that you would like to swap places with, just for one day, if you can?
That's a great question. And I'm so glad you asked because I have the perfect answer.
Okay.
If I could swap places only for one day
only for
with
one
someone,
day. Only
it would
for one
have
day.
to be no one other than the Beyonce Knowles. I love Beyonce.
I love Beyonce
I'm a huge fan. I'm not in the Beehive, but I do love Beyonce. Love the music, the fashion, the hair, the makeup, and of course, the money and the success as well. So only for one day, absolutely Beyonce. What about you? Is there anyone that you think you would swap places with?
Well, I don't have anybody specific in mind, but I think like you said, somebody may be very wealthy and somebody very famous. I would like to experience that maybe just for one day. But if you can swap places with someone, but you don't get to change back, you get to live their lives forever. Would you still want to do it?
Ooh, I don't think so. No, I love my life. I love my family, my friends. I love you.
I love you too.
I would not want to switch permanently. Love you, Beyonce, but that's a lot of pressure. I mean, the businesses, the hairlines, the album. We're still waiting on the album. That's a lot of pressure. She has millions of fans. I can't handle that pressure.
Exactly.
I don't think so.
I feel the same way too. I think if you just experience it for one day, that's totally fine. But I wouldn't give up my life for the world.
Yeah, no, same. Me neither.
But I wonder, how about Prince and the Pauper?
I know. What about Edward and Tom? So it sounds like they're thinking of switching and maybe they're going to switch and switch back or
maybe they don't want to switch back.
Or maybe they don't. Who knows? But we're going to find out.
Suddenly, Edward had an idea. He suggested they exchange clothes. When they stood before the mirror, both boys gasped. They looked exactly alike. Then, Edward noticed a bruise on Tom's hand from the guard and became angry again.
"Wait here,"
he insisted, and rushed outside in Tom's rags to confront the guard. The moment Edward reached the gate, the guards threw him into the street and shouted at him to leave as they mistook him for Tom. Back inside, everyone believed Tom was the prince. Edward tried desperately to return, but no one believed his story.
All right, everyone, we are going to continue along with the Prince and the Pauper day 2, and we are going to see and find out a little bit more about what Edward and Tom have in store. Are they going to switch places? Are they going to switch back? Are they going to like each other's lives? How are they going to feel about what it really means to walk in each other's shoes?
Okay, well, let's find out. Suddenly, Edward had an idea. He suggested they exchange clothes. When they stood before the mirror, both boys gasped. They looked exactly alike. So I guess they didn't notice when they were chatting and talking to each other. It's only when they're, standing next to each other in front of the mirror, that's when they notice, we look exactly the same.
Wow, all right. Let's see what's going to happen next. So then Edward noticed a bruise on Tom's hand from the guard and became angry again. Okay, there was a bruise there, kind of like a marking from when you're injured. Then he says, "Wait here," he insisted, and rushed outside in Tom's rags to confront the guard. Okay, so Edward noticed that Tom had a bit of a bruise, or again, like a kind of a marking from when you're hurt or someone grabs you too hard. And then he rushed outside, however, wearing Tom's rags, right? And rag or rags is a noun, and that just means someone's old, dirty, or torn clothes. I remember, or sometimes if you're kind of cleaning or dusting around the house, maybe you have like an old t-shirt that has holes in it, and you kind of use it as a bit of a dust rag. But in this case, we're talking about rags, like really old and torn clothes. So For example, we could say, the clothes were thrown away because they had become rags, really old, really torn, really dirty, no longer really wearable.
That's right. And then I think he probably forgot that he was wearing Tom's rags and then he wanted to talk to the guards. But what's the guards' reaction going to be like?
I
have
know,
no
because
idea.
if they look exactly the same, and now Edward is wearing Tom's rags, but maybe they think it's Tom, but it's actually Edward, but Edward doesn't realize he's still wearing Tom's rags. There's a lot going on. There's
Exactly.
a lot going on.
But before we find out, we have to go to Hanny first.
Hello， 大家好，我是 Hanny， 今天要继续读 The Prince and the Pauper 乞丐王子，看看接下来会发生什么事。Sydney 老师刚刚用到 in store 这个用语可以表达即将发生，准备就绪。我们常常会用 hold 或者是 have something in store， 后面还可以搭配 for somebody 去表达为某人准备预留了什么什么。好，那故事就写到说 Edward 他突然灵机一动，他提议互换衣服。那么当这两个人站在镜子前都倒抽了一口气，哇，他们看起来一模一样诶。那这时候 Edward 注意到 Tom 的手上有卫兵造成的淤伤，那他就很生气的穿着 Tom 的破衣服冲出去质问那一名卫兵。好，来看单字 rag 这个名词可以指破旧的衣物或是破布，它当破旧的衣物来解释时横用复数形。那我们接着回到课文中。
Thank you, Hanny. And now we are back. Okay, let's go back to our story and find out what happens next. The moment Edward reached the gate, the guards threw him into the street and shouted at him to leave as they mistook him for Tom. And we were right because Edward was wearing Tom's rags, but then the guard didn't recognize him because they look identical. They think, hey, you are Tom. You shouldn't be in here. So then they kind of threw him onto the street again, right?
Again, yeah. Oh no. All right. Then it says, back inside, everyone believed Tom was the prince. Edward tried desperately to return, but no one believed his story. Oh no. All right, so Edward's getting thrown out because it's kind of like a case of mistaken identity, essentially, and Edward's trying really hard to plead and say, hey, no, it's me, but nobody believes him.
Exactly. You know, back then, I don't think they have the technology to find out, who he really is. Right. Now we do, but back then, they only look at the faces, and then people just think, are you this person? And then they would just assume. But we're looking at this vocabulary here, desperately, and that is an adverb. So desperately means doing something with great urgency, intense need, or without caring about danger because you're in a bad spot. So Edward desperately wants to go back into the castle, but he couldn't. An example sentence would be, Adam searched desperately for his lost phone. So when you lose your phone, you really want to find it. You're in such a bad spot. Oh no, what if I can't find it? What am I going to do? I am desperate. So desperate is an adjective.
Yeah. All right. Now I think we can swing over to Hanny and we'll be right back.
All right.
Edward 穿着 Tom 的破衣服去质问那一名卫兵，可是当他一到栅门，这个卫兵们呢就把他推到街上，大喊着叫他离开。原来他们把他误认为 Tom。那么在宫殿里面，所有的人都相信 Tom 就是王子。现在 Edward 他拼命想要回去，可是没有人相信他的话。来看单字 desperately。Desperately 这个副词表示拼命的。不顾一切的，或者是可以表达极其非常。那么 Karen 老师解释单字时用到 urgency 这个名词，可以表达紧急、迫切或者是急迫性。好，那这边有一个重点是 the moment 加上主词加动词，可以表达在点点点那一刻就怎么样。一点点点就怎么样 ？The moment 在这边是引导时间副词子句，它就跟 as soon as 用法意思相近。其中这个 moment 你也可以用 minute 或者是 instant 来代换。举例来说 ，David fell in love with the girl the moment he saw her. David 一见到那个女孩就爱上她了。好，接着回到课文中。
Thank you, Hanny. And now we are back. Okay, so far from our story, we know that Edward and Tom, they exchanged their clothes. And since they look identical, people don't know who they are anymore, and Edward was thrown onto the street by the guard.
Yeah, the guard thought he was Tom because Edward was wearing Tom's rags, and we talked about how Edward is really desperately trying to get back into the castle. And I don't know, we have to kind of wait and see to find out what's going to happen.
Exactly, but I think, if Tom really wants to stay in the castle, he can just pretend to be Edward forever.
Oh, forever. Oh no, what if they don't switch back? What if Edward can no longer be the prince and he's just going to live his life as Tom in rags?
I have no idea, but I guess we'll have to find out after the break. So let's go to the second part of the story, and we will be right back.
For weeks, Edward experienced the harsh reality of poverty, while Tom struggled to act like royalty. But then, one day, the old king died, and Tom was set to be crowned in his place. On the day of the crowning, Edward burst into the church and cried out,
"Stop!"
Guards rushed forward to remove him, but Tom immediately declared that Edward was the true king. When Edward revealed a secret only the real prince would know, everyone finally realized it was truly him. Edward became king and showed mercy to those who had helped him during his time away, while Tom remained his honored friend.
Welcome back, everyone. So before the break, we know that Edward and Tom, they exchanged their clothes. Now people actually believe that Edward is Tom and Tom is Edward. So Tom is living the life in a castle while Edward is living his life on the street, right?
Oh my goodness.
So what's going to happen? Will he get a chance to go back into the castle? What do you think?
Let's see, maybe. I hope so. I hope they can, swap back and maybe still be friends after this. I don't know.
I don't know either.
All right, let's continue. So it says, for weeks, Edward experienced the harsh reality of poverty while Tom struggled to act like royalty. Okay, but then one day the old king died and Tom was set to be crowned in his place. Oh my gosh, what a tragic story. So they swap places. Tom is struggling to act like a prince, and then Edward is having a really hard time adjusting to poverty, living in really harsh conditions, maybe not really living without a stable home, without food, living really poorly. And we do have our vocabulary word here, which is the word crown. So usually when we talk about, crown, it's something that you put on a king or queen's head when they're being crowned. Right here, crown in this context is a verb. So as a verb, to be crowned is to be given the crown and a title as a king or a queen. So for example, we could say the King of Denmark was crowned in 2024, meaning he was made king in 2024.
So right now we know that Tom is the king right now because the old king has passed away, right? Yeah. So that means he's probably going to be faced with more responsibilities, more pressure, and then to make his people's lives better, right?
See, this is why I didn't want to swap lives with Beyonce for too long. It's too much pressure. It's a lot of decision making. Oh my gosh.
We want the simple life, right?
Exactly.
The simple things. Okay, let's continue. On the day of the crowning, Edward burst into the church and cried out, "Stop!" Guards rushed forward to remove him, but Tom immediately declared that Edward was the true king. So right here, I think we know that Tom no longer wants his life in the castle. Maybe he doesn't want to face all the pressure and all the duties, all the responsibilities. We're looking at this word declare, and that is a verb. To declare means to announce something officially, formally, or very strongly, like making something known clearly, such as declaring a winner. And then right here, Tom is declaring that no, the real king should not be me. It should be Edward, right? And the example sentence would be, the judges declared our team the winners.
Okay. All right. Thank goodness. Well, I guess we kind of know, well, we don't know how the story ends just yet. So before we find out, we're going to slide it over to Hanny.
All right.
接下来的几周 ，Edward 经历了贫困的严酷现实 ，Tom 则是努力表现得像个皇室成员。可是有一天呢，老国王驾崩了 ，Tom 即将被加冕为王。那在加冕的当天 Edward 冲进教堂，大喊说：“住手！”当这个卫兵冲上前要把他带走， Tom 马上就宣布 Edward 才是真正的国王。我们来看看单字 crown。crown 当动词可以表达为什么加冠加冕。declare 这个动词则表示宣布、声明或是宣称。那这边有一个重点是 be set to 加原形动词，它可以表达预定要怎么样，准备好要怎么样怎么样。set 在这边是当形容词，是指预定的、安排好的。be set 之后可以接 to 加原形动词，或是接 for 加名词去表达预定要怎么样，安排好要做某事。我们这边造2个例句。The parade is set to begin at 2 p.m. 那场游行预定下午2点开始。Everyone is set for the game. 大家都已经为比赛准备就绪了。好，那我们接回到课文中。
All right, thank you so much, Hanny. And we are going to continue along with the story of Tom and Edward. Let's see what happens. So it says here, when Edward revealed a secret only the real prince would know, everyone finally realized it was truly him. Okay, that's pretty smart. If you really want someone to believe that it's you, you should tell them only something you would know.
That's
Very smart on his end. Yeah.
Because like what I said, back then, they don't have the technology to really find out and to prove who is who, right?
Exactly.
So you have to tell them the secret that only you would know. Okay, let's continue. Edward became king and showed mercy to those who had helped him during his time away, while Tom remained his honored friend. Okay, so I guess it's a happy ending, you know, they still remain friends, and then Tom is now back being Tom, and now Edward is also back to being, you know, living his life in a castle, but he wants to actually make the people's lives better right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So our vocabulary word here is the word mercy, and that's a noun. So it says here that Edward, you know, he showed mercy to those that helped him. So mercy means that you're showing grace, compassion, forgiveness. You're being very kind and very generous to those who typically helped you when you actually have the power to maybe not show mercy or not be so kind. So, for example, we could say, his crime wasn't serious, so he was shown mercy. Okay, well, it's great that Edward was, you know, so kind and very nice to those that kind of helped him out while he was living life as Tom.
That's right. Okay, let's go over to Hanny first and we'll be right back.
当 Edward 说出一个只有真正的王子才知道的秘密，所有的人才终于意识到他确实是真的王子。那么 Edward 接着成为国王，他对那些他流落在民间期间呢，帮助过他的人施以恩典，而 Tom 则成了他最敬重的挚友。好，来看看单字 mercy。mercy 当名词，它是指仁慈、怜悯或者是宽恕。那这边有一个重点是过去完成式 had 加 pp 的用法。那它是用来表示在过去某个时间点或某个动作之前就已经完成的经验或动作。这个时态可以独立使用，也常常会跟过去简单式搭配。先发生的动作会用过去完成式，后发生的动作用过去简单式，用来清楚表达事件时间的先后顺序。举例来说 ，Anne had already heard the news before we told her。在我们告诉 Anne 之前，她已经听到那个消息了。好，那么 Anne 她是先得知消息，所以我们是用过去完成式 had heard。我们告诉她这是后发生的事，这边是用过去简单式 told。那我们接回到课文中。
Thank you, Hanny. And now we are back. Well, I hope you guys really enjoyed our story today of the Prince and the Pauper, but we do have a what do you think question. So let me ask you, Sydney, do you think that switching places allowed the boys to gain a different understanding of life?
No, I think they learned nothing. No, I'm just kidding. Imagine, no, of course.
Exactly.
Of course, they had to have learned something. I mean, Edward was this prince and Tom was this pauper kind of living in poverty, right? A pauper is someone who's extremely, extremely poor. And when they switched places and Edward was living as Tom, living on the street, living in rags, and then Tom was suddenly elevated to this level of royalty and status and elegance, they really got to gain a different perspective and understanding into each other's lives. So much so show that they both had the strength to kind of see from different perspectives and then switch back to their rightful lives. So absolutely, at least I hope, I really do believe that they learned something.
That's
for sure.
true. I think so too. From our story, I definitely think that they both have learned something and then use what they learned to help other people.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Well, let's review our story one more time and we'll see you guys next time.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Suddenly, Edward had an idea. He suggested they exchange clothes. When they stood before the mirror, both boys gasped. They looked exactly alike. Then, Edward noticed a bruise on Tom's hand from the guard and became angry again.
Wait here,
He insisted, and rushed outside in Tom's rags to confront the guard. The moment Edward reached the gate, the guards threw him into the street and shouted at him to leave as they mistook him for Tom. Back inside, everyone believed Tom was the prince. Edward tried desperately to return, but no one believed his story. For weeks, Edward experienced the harsh reality of poverty, while Tom struggled to act like royalty. But then, one day, the old king died, and Tom was set to be crowned in his place. On the day of the crowning, Edward burst into the church and cried out.
stop!
Guards rushed forward to remove him, but Tom immediately declared that Edward was the true king. When Edward revealed a secret only the real prince would know, everyone finally realized it was truly him. Edward became king and showed mercy to those who had helped him during his time away, while Tom remained his honored friend.
最后，我们来复习今天课文里的单字文法。单字的部分有 rag 这个名词表示破旧的衣物，或者是指破布。Desperately 这个副词它表示拼命的、不顾一切的，或是表达极其、非常。Crown 当动词，它表示为什么什么加官加冕。Declare 动词表示宣布、声明或是宣称。Mercy 名词，它表示仁慈、怜悯或是宽恕。文法的部分，第一个学到 the moment 主词加动词，可以表达在点点点那一刻就怎么样，一点点点就怎么样。第二个学到 be set to 加原形动词，是表达预定要点点点，准备好要怎么样。第三个学到了过去完成式 had 加上 PP 是用来表达在过去某个时间点或某个动作之前就已经完成的经验或动作。好，那以上是今天的讲解，同学别走开，马上回来哦。
There is a park in Taichung City called Taichung Metropolitan Park, which was created to conserve nature and provide citizens with a space for leisure and relaxation. Let's take a closer look at this park, shall we? Taichung Metropolitan Park is an urban nature park in Taiwan. It is a great place to have fun and learn about the environment. The park attracts different kinds of birds and insects. Visitors can walk along the lake and check out the plants in the park. They can also explore the hiking trails and enjoy the singing of the birds. The place is popular among Taichung residents. They love going to the park to exercise or just to relax. The main goal of Taichung Metropolitan Park is to give the people of Taichung City a large open space to spend time with family and friends. By growing a variety of plants, the park also helps purify the air and reduce air pollution. It's definitely worth a visit the next time you're in Taichung City.